Can you hear me okay? Yes, awesome. So I'm here to talk about immigration. Nothing's happening right now. So everybody raise your hand if you are an immigrant or first generation in the crowd if you feel comfortable. There's probably like 2 or 3 dozen people here, okay? So America is a nation of immigrants. And to take you through here really quickly, what is happening in immigration, I think we have to start with where we were. Trump administration, the first administration in 2017 to 2020, Trump really focused on kind of brash, off-the-cuff policies, a lot of high rates of denials for work visas, green cards, family-based visas. There was an exodus of government employees during the first Trump administration, which we're still dealing with now in the various government agencies. But silver lining there, most of the policies that Trump tried to administer in his first administration were stopped by the courts. In fact, about 96% of them did not get through. There was a travel ban, there was the family separation policy that did get through. After Trump, we have Biden, which was much more of a return to the Obama-era policies of stability, working with employers, families, and various nonprofits to stabilize immigration. As a result of all the exodus of government employees in the first Trump administration, you saw increased processing timelines for work visas, green cards, family-based visas, asylum across the board. Fortunately, really no negative substantive changes to employment-based immigration. So we're going to step forward here. So right now, Trump's been in office for about 90 days, and we have about 90 different policies in immigration that have been released each day. So I'll qualify this information with saying it is accurate as of 10 a.m. this morning. There definitely could be something that happens later this afternoon or tomorrow that affects some of this information. But I want to focus on, first, actions that the Trump administration has taken that affect lawful immigrant pathways. These are individuals that followed the rules. They filled out the paperwork, they came here legally, they're taking advantage of the various programs that the government offers to come to the United States. A lot of the folks are from distressed areas, Ukraine, Yemen, Uganda, a lot of different areas that offer humanitarian parole or temporary protected status to folks. We'll first start off with refugee resettlement. So why does this matter? About 120,000 refugees come to the United States every single year. They're often settled in small or mid-sized towns or cities. They inject a lot of cash into those areas. They buy up used houses, abandoned houses, fix things over, start businesses at a higher rate. So they're really an injection of economic activity into local and state areas. That's completely halted as of the first day of the Trump administration. So they have not let in a single refugee for the last 90 days, and we actually don't expect them to, very similar to the first Trump administration. Asylum. So for the last 60 years in the United States, if you are fleeing persecution, danger, gang activity, you are allowed to come to the border and say, my life is in danger. And we would process you into the United States, you file for asylum, and you go to your court date and see if you actually qualify for asylum in the meantime. Importantly for employers, these people get work authorization in the meantime. So you could say, well, why does immigration matter to my business? You might not be sponsoring work visas, green cards, but you may have a lot of folks in your worker population that do have immigration benefits or on some type of work authorization. So hospitality, construction, food processing, those areas are heavily involved with immigrants, and a lot of these policies affect those businesses. Humanitarian parole. This is something's going on in your country and we're offering you shelter here in the United States. Most recently, it was halted for Venezuelans, which is a large population of individuals in the United States right now, over 1 million. Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans. Anybody heard of the fight between Harvard and the administration right now? It just happened last night, yeah, so it's been ongoing. The Trump administration is attacking international students and colleges that support them. They've tried to revoke the ability of Harvard to give F1 visas to students internationally, or J's or M's, which are other training visas. And they basically said, unless you comply with how we want you to run your organization, we will no longer allow you to let international students in. That's a huge issue for universities, not just Harvard, but across the country. 25% of students in STEM undergraduate programs are international students. At the master's degree level, it's 50%. At the PhD level in STEM fields, it's over 50%. So a lot of the folks that are graduating from our STEM programs in our schools are actually international students. We have the registration. So anybody that employs immigration or has immigrants in their worker population right now, the registration requirement a few weeks ago caused everybody to have a ton of anxiety, what's going on, what's happening. It was always a possibility to have people, or a policy to have people register when they enter the United States. That went into effect. My firm, our email traffic doubled overnight because there was so much hysteria and uncertainty around how folks should register. Birthright citizenship, which is enshrined in the Constitution. We saw oral arguments at the Supreme Court a few weeks ago on whether individuals that are born within the borders of the United States automatically get citizenship. That's been a policy since we've been a country. And then harassment. This makes the news a lot right now. Customs and Border Protection, they run customs for folks that are coming into the United States. A ton of harassment from US citizens, legal permanent residents, folks on work visas coming back on parole. You may have heard people getting pulled into secondary inspection, and various other holdings for months, or days or months. I said there was a lady who just got released from Customs and Border Patrol holding after 3 months. She was a legal permanent resident. So we'll move on here. Actions affecting undocumented immigrants. Again, why does this matter for you all? It's primarily because you might have folks that are on various types of work visas or work authorization that are in your employee populations that are affected. There was always, under Biden and Obama, a priority to deport folks that were dangerous to the United States. I think we all agree if somebody has a serious criminal conviction or drug offense, they probably shouldn't be here, right? That's completely done away with. There's really no prioritization of individuals they're deporting from the United States right now. We see expanded expedited removal. There's something called due process in the United States. Whether you're an immigrant, a legal permanent resident, or a US citizen, you get your day in court to prove why the government's wrong. Expedited removal takes that away. If they feel that you've committed fraud or you're here illegally, they can literally ship you out of the country without your day in court. That's pretty concerning for immigrants in particular, but also the rest of us. Everyone deserves their day in court. We see reassigning of various government agencies and enforcement agencies to prioritize immigration. So FBI is now involved, DEA is now involved in immigration and deportation enforcement. The diversion of military funds and resources to the border, using planes to fly folks overseas, to have more soldiers at the southern border. And then finally, as everybody probably knows, the tariff wars, tariffs being used against our trading partners to influence them into creating stronger immigration policies and enforcement within their own countries. So that was the bad news. Here's what's going to happen next. Travel bans, pertinent information. We had a travel ban go into effect last night. In fact, affecting 10 different countries or 12 countries and then another 4 restricted. We expected this to happen at some point. It's finally here. Travel bans are generally related to security concerns with these countries, but they're also focusing on with their student visas, not allowing these countries citizens of these countries to come into the United States and go to school here. Increased barriers to immigration. So if you are sponsoring work visas right now or green cards, those costs are going to go up, we expect to. And raising the cost of immigration will make it more difficult for individuals and companies to sponsor individuals. They're going to make the process more difficult. They're going to issue more challenges, more denials. The goal of the Trump administration is to slow down immigration and to make it as difficult as possible for everyone involved. Even though a lot of times folks have rights to be here and companies need these employees to continue working. The H-1B lottery is a lottery that happens every year for a particular type of visa. All you have to do to qualify is have a bachelor's degree. We think that next year that's probably going to change. They may move to a more merit-based system depending on what type of degree you have, what country you're from, how much you're paying the individual. Those are all on the table. Increasing prevailing wages. So a lot of people don't know that most visas in the United States have a prevailing wage. They're there so that immigrants don't undercut the US workforce. We see these wages, expect these wages to go up. There are rumors that perhaps to hire somebody on an H-1B in a few years, you have to pay them 6 figures. ICE, so this is the boogeyman in immigration. You might have heard of them in the news. Immigration Customs Enforcement is coming for your I-9s, actually. So anybody that's involved with people ops or HR, what are you doing with your I-9s? How do you centralize that information? What is your process? In most cases, we see I-9 audits happen because there's a disgruntled employee that makes a complaint after they leave your organization. But in this case, they're ramping up, and we're already starting to see more and more audits as the Trump administration tries to find a way to harass businesses to make sure that you're not employing people illegally inside your organization. And then just generally, Greater coordination by local, state, and the federal agencies around immigration. There was a provision, an executive order that was passed the first or second day he was in office that allows the federal agencies that enforce immigration to deputize and partner with state and local government, police forces to essentially deputize them into immigration agents and allow them to assist in deportation. So how to stay prepared? There's a couple things you can do. One, I would say have good counsel. If you are sponsoring individuals, if you have personal immigration concerns, talk to an attorney. There are thousands in the United States that do an excellent job, ourselves included, and partner with them to work through your workforce and see what your risks are. So we're going to go through the biggest thing for us, as a provider, is centralizing your immigration information and your I-9 information. If you don't have good data, if it's not structured, it makes it really difficult to understand who's on an immigration benefit inside your organization, what risks they may face, what countries they're born in, as these immigration or the travel bans are coming down right now. So centralization of immigration information is really key. We do that through our proprietary immigration platform called Voyager. There are a number of other immigration technologies out there that your attorneys or immigration vendors may use, but it starts with centralizing data and information so you can understand who's at risk inside of your organization. Same thing with I-9s. Do you have a paper I-9 process? Are multiple people touching I-9s? Do you have a software that you're using right now? Is that software compliant? How are you storing your I-9s? Are you purging them when you can? Do you have a process for that? Do you have a process for updating and re-verification of I-9s for your immigrant population? Because their work visas expire or work authorizations expire every few years. Creating a site visit protocol plan. More and more, we're seeing ICE raid various types of businesses. They may show up and ask for I-9 audits. FDNS from the USCIS can show up and looking for an individual on an H-1B or perhaps an L visa. Do you have a plan for this? How are you going to deal with this individual? How are you going to take down their information? What areas of their business are you going to allow them access to? How are you going to supervise the interaction between perhaps the ICE or FDNS officer and your employee? I would recommend filming everything. We all have a cell phone in our pocket, film that to make sure that if they do anything wrong, at least you can raise an objection if you find yourselves in court and you have verifiable proof via the video that you've taken. Create an immigration policy. If you are a business that is sponsoring people on work visas or green cards right now, what is your policy? How do you standardize that? How do you take care of your employees as a result of that? The standardization and creation of an immigration policy not only helps you as a people ops or HR person standardize how you give benefits to these folks, but secondarily, you can also use it as a bit of a shield. When somebody says, hey, I want my green card right now, you can point to the policy and say, hey, we have a 2-year good faith, good work requirement before you'll be sponsored inside the organization. So it works both ways. Communicate with your employees. I think this is the biggest one probably up here. How are you communicating, letting them know that you support them? How are they getting good information? Is your council providing blogs? Are they doing webinars? Are they providing immigration updates and alerts when there are emergencies that happen in immigration? It's really important to communicate to your employees, and if it is in your business's interests and your core values, to support them and say, hey, we got your back. We have outside counsel that's really good. We will take care of you. You don't have anything to worry about. We will protect you. I would say right now, ask your employees to refrain from international travel, if possible. It avoids getting caught in Customs and Border Protection with the various travel bans that are going on right now. You could get stuck outside the United States even if the person has a valid visa. So we try to avoid that at all costs. Also, local travel. And people often ask, why is local travel important? Certain states collaborate with ICE and Customs and Immigration Enforcement more than others. So, for example, if you have somebody that's on a work visa and they're in Florida, and then they get a DUI, for example, after a work event, they could be deported from the United States and put in deportation proceedings. So be mindful of where you're asking your employees to travel. Can it be a digital meeting? Can it be a Zoom? Do they really have to go down there? And I think have some empathy around their concerns with travel domestically and internationally if you're asking them to do so. Build contingency plans for your employees. What are we going to do if H-1Bs are taken away, or if this person can't get back in, or they get stuck abroad, or the green card takes a little longer than normal? Work with your council to come up with alternative solutions for the employees that are in your programs. So that one, you are prepared. You can then communicate that backup plan to your employees so they feel a little bit more at ease. And I think, finally, as employers and employees, know your rights. We have some great collateral at Meltzer Hong we provide to all of our clients. Understand what your rights are as an employer in certain situations. Understand what your employees' rights are in the middle of ICE raids or FDNS visits. Communicate that to your employees so that everybody's on the same page of what's going on, what you can and can't do, and how to take care of certain situations. Most importantly, I would say if you have counsel, call counsel immediately if something happens. That's the most important thing. We're always here to help. We're here to partner with your organization to protect you as a business owner, but also to protect your employees and their families as well. So that is the end of my presentation. We have a little bit of text and Q&A. As a partner, go ahead. Here we go.
I'm Nick. Matt. That is my actual cell phone number. This isn't one of those like specifically tricky conference response things. That's like the one that I use, like my kids' daycare will text me on. So just keep that in mind. But we'd love to hear your thoughts and throw some questions up. I've got it right here on the iPad in front. We're gonna throw some questions from the audience into this as well, just briefly.
Of course.
And I've got one to start with. That's my question.
Sure.
What are some of the changes that have been made to work visas, green cards for tech employees? I know that's like a big topic.
Thankfully, not a lot right now. But we do expect changes to happen in the future. As I mentioned before, prevailing wages going up, getting it more expensive to sponsor these individuals. But at the moment, we haven't seen a ton of change. Good or bad, whether you like him or not, one of the immigration advocates inside of the Trump administration was Elon Musk. He was very pro H-1B. He's very negative in DOGE and a lot of other things that were going on inside the government, but he had the president's ear for a long time. He's gone now. So we don't really know who's influencing the president when it comes to work visas or green cards at the moment. I would expect they were not going to be a proponent of those going forward.
Here's the first one. This is a good one, very simple. What's it going to be like a year from today? What are some of the changes that you would anticipate over the next 12 months that affect employers? How's that going to work?
Yeah, so I think the biggest one is the cost of immigration is going to go up. We're going to see RFEs, we're going to see more denials. We're going to see the entire process for work visas, family-based visas, asylum refugees get more difficult. I tentatively expect maybe an immigration bill to work through Congress over the next 6 to 12 months. That is good and bad. We haven't had any move on immigration in like 35 years. Which is why a lot of our work visa and green card programs are archaic and kind of out of step with the needs of the workforce right now. But there may be some good things in that. They need 7 Democratic votes to get that bill through Congress, through the Senate. So there's going to have to be a, what do they call it, like deal making or behind closed doors. There's going to have to be some concessions that the Republicans make to get that bill through. We think maybe more high and low skilled work visas, perhaps a path to citizenship for dreamers, which is important, and maybe some movement on DACA.
A couple more came in. A couple good questions here. I'll start with this one. Are current H-1B visa holders at risk?
No, that's a difficult question to answer. I would say no. Other than increased costs for sponsoring the extensions and perhaps green cards that they want from you all, we don't see any substantive changes happening to the H-1B visa program. There was actually a memo that was released at the end of the Biden administration, which copied a lot of the Trump stuff actually and enshrined it. But for the most part, I think H-1B employees are safe. Now, there's always risk with international travel and getting through Customs and Border Protection when they come in. But right now, I think they're okay. But like, check back with me in about 20 minutes. So,
good question. Actually, 2 questions kind of on the same topic, which is like, how do you deal with anxious employees that are on visas? Like, how do you combat like the anxiety, the hysteria, the concern?
I would say happy hours. No. I think communication is really important. Getting your employees good information. There are so many blogs and Reddits and like circumstantial evidence and gossip that goes on the internet. I think the best thing you can do is have a good partner, a good immigration source, and feed that information to your employees. Make sure that they understand it. If you have outside counsel and you're sponsoring individuals, schedule calls with them so they can hear it directly from the attorney if they need to. The biggest thing we want as a provider to businesses is have employees focus on what they're doing for you and not be distracted by what's going on in immigration and their status in the background.
Gotcha. Just time for probably one more. We got quite a few questions here. Thank you guys. So many.
Happy to answer them too. We have a booth outside, so if you have a question, happy to answer it there, or something that's maybe a little bit too fact specific to answer in front of the group.
A couple related questions. What changes do you see in outsourcing, nearshore, offshoring? There's a couple questions along those lines.
Yeah, so I think as immigration becomes more difficult, I think you're just going to see a trend of more nearshoring and offshoring. And we've seen that in our client base as well. Where we've seen it kind of come back a little bit is if you do nearshore or offshore and you own these entities abroad, we see companies bring back the high level, the A players and L1As or L1Bs, the best engineers you have, the best managers you have abroad. So I do think that as immigration becomes more difficult, you're going to see folks offshore and nearshore more. Canada has taken advantage of this, to be honest. They have revised their immigration rules and laws to be much more accepting of individuals. They have 30 million people that live in Canada. I think over 1 million are immigrants, so a pretty high population percentage. And they've built their tech industry based off of our reluctance to allow STEM and tech employees to stay here.
Great. Well, thanks. Lots more questions. If you guys have questions, and I see that you clearly do, look for the booth right outside, and we'll keep going from there. Thanks again.
Thank you for your time,
for
everyone.
the session.